All right, Charlie. It is June the 17th. It's episode number 16, I think we said. And we're joined today by Alex Archbold. Hello, Alex.
Hello.
Hi guys. Hello.
Hello.
How are you? I like your woody background.
Yeah.
kind-
Being in Canada, we don't get summer or trees with leaves on them that often, so I had to have fake ones behind me to remind me what the outdoors look like.
I agree.
Yes, it's just like that in London. We don't get a lot of the sun.
Yeah,
So,
we see you hang a picture of a sunny day to feel like you're outdoors somewhere.
yeah, I'll just steal your picture and just put it in the background. Make me feel better.
There you go.
So how are you coping in isolation so far?
I guess.
Because I'm always fascinated by people's stories on how they're coping. So,
well, for me, it's been kind of a bigger challenge probably than for most people. We have our store. We were shut down for 2 months, and during that time, I actually lost my father-in-law to COVID-19. So, not many people know somebody directly that's passed away from that, but we did lose a family. I had this shut down for 2 months to do online orders or ship stuff out to people because I had to be in quarantine for a month myself. So it was definitely a challenging last couple months, but we're moving forward, and we're trying to stay positive, and really, if anything, it kind of makes you feel motivated to complete a lot of the things you want to do in your lifetime as you realize how temporary things are. That you get stuck indoors for. I was fixing around the house, like taps that were leaking for months, and I was like fixing everything. Things that didn't need fixing, I was like, that looks broken, and then I take it apart and redo it. So,
yeah.
You're like Bob the Builder, yeah?
Yeah. He has like a whole bunch of talking, possessed dump trucks and stuff. I just had me.
Yeah. Yeah, you were also working on a car. It was the Rolls Royce, I believe. Whenever you were.
Yeah. Still working on that. Actually, in that downtime, so we have a Rolls Royce Corniche convertible. Well, actually, it's a Mulliner Parkboard drop head coupe. From your land, the land of the United Kingdom. I can't try to sound English without sounding like Stewie Griffin. I said,
yes, ew.
Behave.
How dare you?
So we had, the car was out of the shop getting painted, and then I ended up getting another car, an old Alfa Romeo, and I fixed that up completely. And then somebody wanted to buy it, so I sold it, and I still don't have the Rolls Royce back yet. It's still in the shop. So hopefully that'll be done soon. I'd like to drive it while we still have some summer left this year. But it should be nice. Yeah, that kept me busy.
Yeah.
So what other positive things have you been up to apart from fixing everything around the house?
Let's see. Well, we've been planning for what to do next with our business. I mean, spending time with the kids, of course, is a big positive. I've had a lot of time to spend with my family. Yeah. And certainly there's been a lot of wonderful moments that we've had that we wouldn't normally get because they're all off in school. My wife's a teacher, so she's normally away. So we've had a lot more time together than usual. So just getting to know my kids a lot better and spending time with them and having fun and playing games. But we've also been trying to, this time of being off or time of being closed has given me a chance to look at my business differently too. We have an antique store, and we sell collectibles and do that kind of stuff. And we decided that we want to put an addition up on our lot next door to us. But that's been met with both wonderful dreams and ambitions, but also some challenges trying to make it all come together along the way too. But it's given us an opportunity to dream. And I think sometimes you need, some people are really creative when right before they go to bed because your mind is clear, or right when you wake up. I think that having this right before bed, where you've had more time to reflect or think about your life differently. And especially with us having some loss in our lives, it's giving me time to think about what I really want to give back to our community and how we want to be part of that area that we're in. But it's been good overall.
Nice. Very good. So I have some questions that I specifically made because Charlie, before I mentioned your channel to him, he didn't really know about it. So I was like, yeah, I'm a big fan of it. So
you're like the number one fan, aren't you? Yeah.
It's funny. It's funny. I showed my manager, like I work at another job too. I work at a gas station, and I was talking to my manager, and we kind of both watched the Potter's House series together. Like I would watch it at my place, and then we would talk about it whenever we had shifts together. Yeah,
that's funny. Yeah. It's to know that our little adventures are kind of making way into other people's lives and workplaces. That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was quite a that was a lifetime experience, that's for sure.
Yeah, like I did the edition and 12 million combined views on all of the videos together. That's did you expect it to blow up that much, or?
I figured no, I didn't. You know, like an average video for us, if it was a popular video, would probably be like over 100,000 views within the first month or so. Like, so I thought I was expecting about the same. So I mean, the whole story itself is a sum, and I don't know if you watched the whole series from start to finish.
Yeah, I did.
You couldn't have scripted more diverse things to happen in a series from, you know, discovering this. I went out there just to buy some antiques with my old ambulance. I ran out of gas. I drive a Ghostbusters car as my like work truck. So I have this 1973 Pontiac Ghostbusters car that we use to haul stuff around in. So I'm driving that. I run out of gas. I get saved by the people who I'm going to go meet and go look at this house. It ends up being so full to the roof that I can't possibly see everything that's inside. And I'm already picking out like an entire carload of stuff. And we ended up making an arrangement just to buy the whole property with whatever was in it. And as a result, uncovered the legacy of this octogenarian that had owned the house, and that she was a famous artist at one point earlier in her life. And it had been since forgotten. And, you know, and we were able to bring her legacy back and bring awareness back to her art. And we published a book. And, you know, she passed away midway through filming. We were getting the house ready she was actually going to come and see the house midway through restoration. And she passed the hospital she was in wouldn't let her come because they thought it would be risky for her health. And you're thinking, well, she's 102. Like every day is risky to a person's health at 102. I wish she could have had a chance to come see it. But on the other hand, I did show her some pictures of it. And, you know, it's just surprising how sharp she was, how quick she was to remember things. We uncovered items in that house that hadn't been seen since the early 1970s. And she said, oh, yeah, I put that there on this day. And you look in this bottom drawer, you're going to find that. It's like, how do you remember what you put in a drawer 50 years ago? It was crazy.
Yeah, and then I remember her final wish was to go in the Ghostbusters car. That was her.
She loved that car. So when I would go and visit her at the care home she was at, I would pull up in the Ghostbuster car, and then she wanted to come out and see it. So they wheel her out to the door, and she'd go, and her eyes would get really big, and she said, "I want to go for a ride in that car someday." So I said, "I will. You know, as soon as they let you out to go for a ride, I will take you for a ride in this car."
Yeah.
And before she passed, one of her final wishes was that she'd get her final ride in that car. And so we honored that. And, you know, we ended up meeting this lovely lady and having this great adventure. And as she passed, we ended up being the ones to carry her to her final resting place in a Ghostbusters car because she was just a fun lady. And she was cool with that. So we got permission to put the sirens and lights on because that all still works on the car.
Oh, wow.
So I drove through a little town, drove her past. That was the moment for me that I got chills, is when I drove past her old house, and it was basically really far along. Like, we'd done a lot of work on the inside, and it was looking very nice. And she didn't get to see it, but I drove her past her old house one last time before we took her to the cemetery. But yeah, it was a journey. And then as a result, we found so much pottery in the house that had value that we ended up deciding to split the proceeds with her family. Their son and daughter, just so that, I mean, there was a lot of stuff that was left behind in the house and didn't feel right taking all that just for ourselves, even though we're entrepreneurs and that's the purpose of our business. But we want to leave something more of a legacy for her family. Yeah.
So, like, I remember in the Potter's House series, the very first episode that I think YouTube recommended to me was the one where you found a bunch of money in the drawer.
And yeah, that was the second episode, I think. So you got recommended it the second episode.
Pretty early on, because I would always be sitting there waiting for the next episode because
we'd be filming and I would generally post stuff like you know, the day after it happened.
Yeah.
So I'd post it and somebody would say, what happened with the series? Where's the rest of it? Whatever happened? I'm like filming it right now.
You're filming it as you're doing it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not just like people are asking me what happened with the Rolls-Royce project. I'm like, it's still happening. Not done it yet.
Yeah.
So, how did you get the Ghostbusters car? Where did that come from?
I initially made one of our very first YouTube video that took off, and this was at a time when I had maybe like 100 subscribers, and then we did this video going to buy Mercedes-Benz ambulance out of a junkyard, and we had 100,000 views on that video like in 2 days, and I was like, what? So our first big video was buying that, but that car was so rough, that Mercedes ambulance, when we brought it back, I just gave up on the project. So I searched online for ambulances. This is me typing, because I typed on an 1800s typewriter like this, like it's magic. Woo! Woo! There should be like a puppet. Anyway, so I looked online to see if there's other ambulances for sale, because I thought it would be a really practical and cool vehicle for what I do. And sure enough, the only one for sale in all of Canada was 45 minutes from my house. Oh. And it was listed online. The guy did not have a price. It just said, you know, please contact for price. And so I called him. I went out there, looked at it, and I knew it was the right car for me, because when I met him, we met at a Walmart parking lot in a small town. And when he pulled up and I pulled up, everybody who was in that Walmart came over to look at the car. They're like, whoa, what is that? And it didn't have the Ghostbusters stickers on the door that I put that on. It just looked like an ambulance. But everybody came over to look at it, and I'm like, okay, we got to buy this car, because it's, you know, it's cool. My son was with me, and at that time he was younger. You know, he was probably like 10 years old. He's like, Dad, you got to buy this car. And this is before I bought it, which is the worst to negotiate with your kid in the car when they're like, buy it, Dad, buy it. You put enough money. I'm like, you're not helping me here.
Yeah. Oh,
that's so funny.
You were like, stop it.
You should pay him more.
Yes, I should.
Yeah, but anyway, so yeah, we bought the car, and we drove it home, and yeah, it's been with us ever since. It's been, you know, about 4 years or so that we've had it, but yeah, it's a full-on ambulance. Came with the stretcher, the whole thing.
Wow.
In fact, all the medicine was in the back. Like all the morphine and dopamine and needles and stuff were still there from when it was an ambulance. So I took it into a pharmacy to go hand it in for a safe. And they looked at me like, they're like, where did you get all this? I'm like, I bought an ambulance. They're like, you're not allowed to have this. I'm like, I know. That's why I'm here. I know I'm not supposed to have this stuff. But yeah they were like, we don't want to deal with it. I'm like, okay. They ended up taking it anyway. I'm like, well, I don't want to walk around town with this.
Next thing you're arrested, and you're going, thanks, son.
Yeah. I had a briefcase, basically like a toolbox full of morphine and stuff. I'm like, I don't want this. It was left behind in some compartment in my ambulance. I'm trying to safely get rid of it. But anyway, we did get rid of it. But yeah, we used the car to haul stuff around.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been lots of fun.
So did you do like a full restoration on the ambulance? I didn't really watch.
No, I haven't done any. Actually, the only thing I did was pretty much just stick stickers on the door, and I've had to do a little bit of cleaning up of the rust. It had some surface rust starting, but other than that, it's been a pretty good vehicle. It's been probably the most reliable of my old cars that I've had. So it just always starts. And we get minus 40 here.
Yeah.
There's days where it's minus 40. And when you're complaining in England, like, oh, it's rainy today. We're like, if I go outside for too long, I'll die. But
would you swap?
Yeah. Oh, in certain times, I think I'd rather have the rain. But yeah. No, it's been a good car.
So how many cars do you have?
I don't even know. I'd have to really give that some thought. 2, 3, 4, 6, I think I have 6. I've got a 79 Mustang Cobra, which is a project car.
Yeah.
A 49 GMC truck, which I bought, a Chevy truck, which we bought to turn into a flower pot, and sculpture, but it is probably a running vehicle. But so those kind of don't count because they're just like they're project things.
Yeah.
The ambulance, we got the Rolls Royce. I've got a 56 Buick. My wife's Volvo, and I just sold the Cadillac the other day. So yeah, we have 6 cars and a motorcycle.
Nice.
Wow. What's the most expensive one in your collection?
The Rolls Royce probably would be most expensive. It's a Rolls Royce convertible, so once it's done, it'll be the most expensive car.
And what would be your favorite car?
You know, I don't necessarily. I'm enjoying the Buick right now. It's just a really fun. It's a tropical sort of coral blue, or not coral blue, seafoam green sort of color. It's a beautiful. Looks like a 1950s dream. But I love driving car that when you drive, it puts a smile on other people's face. The ambulance is fun for that because the Buick is fun. People give you the thumbs up and they're like, nice car, looks really cool. But you drive the ambulance to a whole other level. It's the equivalent of driving around like a parade float with like ribbons and people on the back, and
it's not obnoxious. Yeah, it's not like, look at my car, and everyone's like,
people look at you and it's not like thumbs up. They're like, whoa, and they're screaming and pointing. So it's almost like you kind of keep your head down when you're driving because it attracts too much attention. But for a business, it's good. We have our business name on it, so I try not to drive that part. Yeah, it's good for a business vehicle, but it really does the job of advertising. But any kind of old crazy car is fun. In fact, we saw an ad on the internet, and somebody had what I thought was an Oscar Mayer Wienermobile for sale, but ended up being a scam. But I would have seriously considered buying that and driving that as my daily vehicle.
Yeah.
Like when you get groceries, and the Oscar Mayer Wienermobile, if you're not familiar, is a giant hot dog with wheels.
Yeah.
But that's the kind of person I guess I am. I was willing to drive around in a big giant Wienermobile.
Will you be getting one in the future?
If one came up, I actually wrote the guy and I was like, I'm interested in buying this, and I would have driven it as my everyday car.
That would be good for business. You could have one of that.
Oh no, I love stuff that makes people happy. I love to have a little bit of fun and whimsy. I'm like the Willy Wonka of my neighborhood. Pretty well. I have a top hat and bow tie that I wear sometimes. But yeah, the stranger the better for us.
Yeah. So, what was your first car? I know you mentioned it in like one of your recent videos, but I forget what.
My very first car. This is how I got my first car. I went to a garage sale and I bought a 78 RPM record. I'm making it round because you're a record guy, and it's not like you don't know how how records are round. The man who has almost a record
square. Circle.
78s are like the early. There was only one song per side, and they're really brittle anyway. But there was this one back in the 1990s. Value of Elvis Presley 78s were valued pretty high because there wasn't really as much going on the internet back at that time. So you only had price guides. So you'd look at stuff, you look at the price guide, and it'd be like $500. Wow. Now we know that as the world has opened up, the prices come down on some things. But at that time, I had this record. I paid 25 cents for it at a garage sale. And I wrote a guy who had a 1949 DeSoto, but I didn't have any money. But he said willing to trade. So I traded him that record for that car.
Really?
So I paid 25 cents technically for my first car. And it was a 1949 DeSoto, which is a Chrysler product.
Yeah.
And it was a miserable vehicle. It was in excellent shape. It's just, it was miserable from new.
Yeah.
It had a really funny transmission that you kind of shifted, but you didn't. And, probably didn't help that mice had built a nest in the exhaust. So we started it, the whole interior smoked up.
Oh.
But, it ran and drove. There might have been some issues with the gauges because they spun around like they were possessed little dolls.
Did it start killing people in the end?
No, I didn't get out. It wasn't like Christine. It didn't start driving over my neighbors. But it was doing weird stuff. But anyway, it was an ex-funeral home car. Boom.
Oh.
That's where it came from. It was all black, and it had fancy sort of footrests in the back, and everything was gold-plated. And I'm like, this is fancy. He's like, oh, yeah, it used to belong to some funeral home. So it was this black, almost like a 7-passenger limousine sort of thing. And that was my first car. And I didn't really drive it a whole lot, sold it, and then we ended up buying a Buick. And from then on, and 150 cars later, or more. Yeah, it's been a bit of an obsession. Now, not all of those cars have run and driven. Some of them were
a bit of an obsession. 150.
Yeah,
just a little. I'm keeping it low. Just 150.
Yeah. It's actually kind of insane, I guess, when you say something like that. But in this line of work that I'm in as an antique dealer, I'll go in someone's house and they'll have, they'll open up the garage and say like, oh, we're trying to sell some stuff in here. And there'll be like some really cool, crazy old car. And I'll say, well, what's up with the car? They'll go, well, it's for sale too. And inevitably I end up bringing something home. So I don't really go looking for these things. They just find me.
Yeah. So speaking of things finding you, this is another one of my pre-scripted questions.
Okay.
So one of the my favorite videos that you ever put out was whenever you met Robert Bailey.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and you purchased the Lord of the Wings.
I did.
Yeah. I see it every now and again, like the videos. What moved you to purchase it?
What moved me to purchase it? Why did I buy it?
Yeah.
Well, it was very well done.
Yeah.
It was Robert Bailey's a very talented artist. He does work for George Lucas, and he's had a lot of his work go to very famous people, and he's published. And he watches our YouTube channel. He's one of our subscribers.
Wow.
And so he calls me every once in a while, and he's like, "Oh, I saw this or that," and very supportive. With us, we're going through challenges with the city trying to get our building up, and he'll phone Bay's rooting for us. So very nice guy.
Yeah.
But I went over to he wanted to buy an old 16 millimeter film camera that I had. Beautiful camera. And so it was a Graflex. I took it over to his studio there. And he said, "Well, do you want to trade?" So we looked, and he had this beautiful oil painting that he did. It was meant for Peter Jackson. He actually presented it to Peter Jackson. That's why he called it Lord of the Wings. Because Peter Jackson was a World War I fan, and I guess George Lucas or somebody said, you should make one of these for Peter Jackson. He'd probably buy one because he'd sold some of his paintings to. It was either Spielberg or Lucas or somebody who's into World War II big time.
Yeah.
And so he made this all up, and he presented it to them, and he's like, "Nah, I'm good." He was like, "No, I don't really need like a crazy expensive painting, but thank you." So he was like, "Oh, okay."
Fine.
So he had it sitting there in the studio. And it was the last oil painting that Robert Bailey ever did, and the opportunity was just there to buy it at a fair price, and we had it on display in our store for only a couple weeks, and it sold. It sold right away, actually.
Did it?
Yeah.
I remember seeing it in. I don't know if it was in the new shop. It was right above where your cash counter is. Yeah.
And even before I opened, somebody saw one of my videos and they said, I want to buy that now. So they came over while I was still setting up.
Yeah.
And they bought it. So it was probably one of my first sales at my new store was that Robert Bailey painting. Really cool piece though. Yeah.
Yeah. Like whenever I was watching it, I was like, hey, that guy's really cool. Like he just makes a living off of painting Star Wars pictures.
Yeah, he does drawings. And yeah, he's really good. But yeah, that's what he does. He does like Marvel art or Marvel Studios, so Star Wars, Marvel characters, all that stuff he does. Yeah, he's got a nice setup.
Yeah. So what would be the weirdest thing that ever came into your shop? That's been a question that I've always had.
Well, sometimes people say like, "What's the oldest thing?" And you say like, "Well, dinosaur fossil," and they're like, "Oh yeah, of course, that's pretty old."
Yeah.
Weirdest? I've had some strange medical things come in. I had a 2-headed pig fetus in a jar.
What?
That was unusual. I currently have a headhunter trophy from Borneo.
Yeah.
That was like Papua New Guinea kind of area where they took this sounds very dark. I don't carry a lot of this stuff, but you're asking weird.
Yeah.
It's the cranium or the top portions of 2 human heads that are fused together with shell and what I presume is probably human hair into a rope. And it goes around both ways. And they carved all these intricate designs into them, and they would wear it around their neck as a trophy. Wow. So, I mean, that's cumbersome, but also, you're going to go like kiss somebody and your head decoration is going to bump into like that. Probably be a bit of a turnoff on your first date.
It would be.
Wait a minute, did that Phil? Oh, Phil.
Yeah.
The village, that shows him. Look who's boss now. Anyway, so that came out of New York. I had an oddities collector write me. He was getting rid of some stuff. So, yeah. So there's people out there who collect all sorts of strange things. I had a portable autopsy table show up last week, and it sold within an hour.
Wow.
Yeah. Now, normally I don't like to carry that kind of stuff. I generally try and stay away from things that are really dark. Mm-hmm. Or I stay away from like Nazi memorabilia. I don't believe in carrying a lot of that sort of thing or kind of stuff as much as it is history. So I wanted to have an oddity showcase, and that head trophy kind of made the showcase. Nobody knows what it is. I have to make a little card and a special. I was inspired after going to Ripley's Believe It or Not Museum in Manhattan.
Oh yeah.
And they had all this weird stuff, and I'm like, I've got some weird stuff. I should probably make a bigger deal out of it. I just haven't done that yet, but. It will happen.
Yeah. I think it was a few days ago. I was actually showing the assistant manager at my work one of the uh, business card holders that you had, where it was the spine and it had the skull on the other side.
Yeah, that was cast aluminum or aluminium.
Yeah.
I said it was aluminium.
Aluminium. Oh.
That's right. If I was English, I'd be upper crust, I guess.
Yeah.
Oh,
yes.
Anyway.
How dare you?
I'm saying, good sir.
How dare you, sir? Get out! Off with your head.
It was super cool though. It was cast. It was the back portion of a human skull with the spine. Yeah. And it was a business card holder or a pen. It would have actually been a pen rest.
Yeah.
So I was taking pictures of it for Instagram, and I posted the Instagram picture, and the guy was in my store as I was posting the picture. He said, "I'll buy that." And I was
really?
Like, I posted the thing just went. He was like, "No, I'll buy it." I'm like, "Oh man, okay." So it was gone. Sometimes things sell that fast.
Really?
That you post, like it comes in, and in some cases, I will. This is crazy.
Yeah.
That was cool. The end. That was neat.
Yeah.
I want to share this. I once had a person bring in a box of bottles.
Yeah.
What?
And I bought them, and they said, "Well, I'm going to have a look around the store." While they went to the back of the store, a guy comes up. He says, "Are those bottles for sale?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And so he offered, like, I don't know, 3 times what I paid for them. I'm like, "Cool." So he buys and walks out the door. The lady comes back, and she's like, "Oh, did you put the bottles on?" I'm like, "No, actually, they sold." She's like, "I was only in the back for like 2 minutes." So that was cool. But sometimes you either sell things really quickly.
What were the bottles?
They were old, like, soda bottles, like Coca-Cola and odd weird brands that we don't see very often. There were some rare ones in there. So I don't generally like to sell a lot of that stuff in the store unless they're really rare ones. When I do get a big collection of them in, I have people that I wholesale that stuff out to that more deal on that. And that's one thing we do. Is we also wholesale out to other antique dealers too when we get things in bulk. Because I am certainly not afraid to buy things in mass quantities. You know, I bought that entire house, or I bought an entire antique store before, an abandoned antique store. And apparently, I just today bought an entire military collection of some kind.
Oh my gosh!
We bring in a trailer with 55 totes of military stuff. No idea what's going to be in there. I'm sure it'll make an interesting video. But
yeah, I'll be watching it.
I have no space for that amount of stuff at my store. So we'll probably end up doing a specialty auction or do something, and I'll just take it direct to auction and hope to make my money back there. Pick out the few really good things for my shop, and then off it goes. Generally,
when you go and collect certain items from places, is there a particular thing you're looking for, or just it's just random? We just go there and like it. Is there a mission, first of all?
I like to be surprised. I like to find things that I think are artistic or surprising or different. And then there's after that, you're looking for things are just good sellers. So I'm hoping when I go to someone's house, my theory is that in most people's houses, there's 1 or 2 exceptional things, that you would think are cool, and that you'd want to bring back with you. Like a replica wrestling belt or something, maybe. That's
well, there you go. Yeah. And it spins. It
does spin.
So I go to people's houses, and I kind of just do a tour and I walk around. Sometimes I can film it, sometimes I can't because they're private. But you say, well, why don't you show me around? Show me the things you might think of selling. And if I see something I'm interested in, can I point at it and let me know if it's for sale or not? So we'll do a little tour, and the whole time I'm kind of eyeing up the things that they're selling and also the things that maybe they're not selling. And so I'll say, had you considered selling this or that? And if they say, well, maybe, and they're on the fence, then I might just throw a number out and see if they jump at it. But generally, we put a big group of things together, and then we make an offer on it, and it comes back. In some cases, though, I get these mystery boxes or mystery box openings where somebody's called me over and said, listen, we're clearing out Grandpa's storage unit or whatever it is, or he's passed on and this was all in his den. We need you to take everything out of here for, let's say, $500 or $1,000. You get everything. And I kind of eyeball the main things that are visible. And then you get all these extra boxes of things along with it that help offset the cost. And it's fun. It makes for fun videos. And you get to go through stuff that nobody's been through in a long time or make discoveries. So I do like buying the randomest, like all these bins of military stuff. I have no idea what I bought. He's listed off a few things that I know I can get my money back based on the whole purchase price right away. but I have no idea what else is in the bins. So it should be interesting. It'll make a good video. 55 bins of it.
What's the most surprising item you've ever got and thought, wow?
I've had a few surprises. One, I had a book that was written by, he was an Irish nobleman, and it was his personal journal from the 1700s. And it was in a box that was at a person's garage sale, and they hadn't been able to sell it. So it happened to be in with some teacups. And they thought the book had no value, and they wanted to sell me the teacups. And I said, well, I'm not interested in your teacups, but I would buy the book. And they said, oh, well, you know, we were trying to get $5 for it. And I think I can't remember what I gave them for. I gave them like maybe a couple hundred because I thought, okay, well, it's a nice old book. They thought it was a sea captain's log. And I thought, okay, well, you know, it looks interesting. I didn't know it was a Irish nobleman's journal at that time. But then you start reading it, and he's talking about the Irish Rebellion, talking about the American Revolution. You know, his thoughts on his dad was taken as an Algerian slave and held as hostage. But they were related to the House of Somerset. They actually came from English nobility. So it had the family tree going back to King Richard III, I think. And here I have this guy's book. And you're going, wow, like it's unbelievable. This was almost basically tossed aside with junk. And here I have this amazing, and he had beautiful drawings, hand-drawn ships, you know, battle scenes, accounts of historic battles at the time with how many ships were sunk and who won and what was happening, you know, what Lord Nelson was doing. So from a historic standpoint, it was very cool. That ended up selling to a private collector here in town. But yeah, we turned a good tidy profit on that. But that was a wonderful piece of history that ended up being in a box with some teacups rejected from someone's yard sale, going into a personal collection of someone who really cherishes historic military items. It was a good find, and that certainly surprised me.
Oh, wow.
Something else that surprised me, I went into a guy's basement, and it was a 1960s or 70s sort of house.
Were you allowed in? The way you said that, I just went into the basement.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So I go over to this guy's house, and we're looking at some things, and we're going through some drawers of some modern showcases, and there's this little paperweight of an anchor. And he said, oh, that's, you know, some old, you know, sea captain's paperweight. And I went, oh, okay, that's kind of cool. And I look at it, and it's Sir John Franklin of the Franklin expedition, who went to the Arctic and died with the ships, the Erebus and the Terror, back, you know, the turn of the, in the 1800s. They actually recently found his ships at the bottom of the sea. But it was quite, oops, sorry. There we go. He's obviously quite a famous guy, Sir John Franklin. He was knighted before he perished. This was a wedding gift to his second wife after his first one died. And we had the paperwork. It was sold at an auction house in the 1960s in London, ended up with this family, got passed down to the grandson, who really wasn't interested in it, and ended up going to me. Wow. And so you have this wonderful piece of history. You think a twist of fate, a paperweight's a handy thing to have. He could have taken that on his trip, and it could have been at the bottom of the Arctic Ocean right now. You know, one decision, he might have looked over at it on his desk and thought, what should I say, what should we bring, lads? Let's bring that paperweight. No, it's too heavy.
Oh, my.
I know why that guy, he's like a little bit more.
I'm going to leave it for Alex.
Yeah, that's right. And they did. And so we ended up with it. But, you know, you find these little things. I was in another estate. I bought a whole collection of autographs, and in it was a letter written and signed by our first Prime Minister, Sir John A. Macdonald. And so we have these wonderful bits of history that we find. And that's probably my favorite part of this job, is being surprised by the things that people have, and being there at the right moment when somebody has reached the end of their interest in it, or where it's just got to the end of the line of the family and it needs to go somewhere else. It's an honor for me to be able to find those things and get them back and preserved with the right people. You know, you feel like Indiana Jones at that moment.
You've adopted them and given them to someone else.
Yeah. You know, and you try not to take too much stuff home yourself, but I have a little collection of things, but not terribly much. Because
are there items that you've given away that you wish you kept?
You know, things like that, like the Franklin anchor, the paperweight, the things that have really historic significant value that probably should be in a museum. I have some regrets about that, because if they go to private hands, You make them aware to a museum, but if they're not buying at that time or if they're not interested, a lot of times museums will actually only take things on donation, so you don't get any money for it. But there's things like that, the historical items that that it was a one of that you might never see again. Those are the things that are tough.
Yeah. So I guess we're starting to come up on the half an hour mark here. So I'm gonna ask my final question. If Charlie wants to ask a few more, he can. So what was your very favorite episode in general to make? What was the most fun you've ever had making a video?
Boy, that's a tough one. There's been a few where you just know that you're having fun.
Yeah.
I would say there's been many moments, like maybe even, I would say that having that group of friends around me when I was at the Potter's house.
Yeah.
Maybe there was an episode where I was working on this house and I checked into the motel I was staying at, and unbeknownst to me, they had put my name as the headliner musician.
Oh, yes, I do
remember. Patrick's Day. I checked in and I'm like, am I supposed to be playing a song tonight? And they're like, yeah, you're like playing all night long. I'm like, what now? So I only had like 10, 12 songs memorized, and those went by pretty quick. So I had another like 2 hours to fill. So I was just like looking up songs on my phone and like learning them on the spot and playing.
Yeah.
It was a whole ordeal. But that episode, just from when I think back on filming that, and probably like a lot of people who do videos and film, you don't go back and watch your stuff again. You put it out there and it's out there. You've lived it once, you don't need to see it again.
Yeah.
But being there in that moment with my brother-in-law and with my friends Josh and Dakota, just how fun that was at that time to be on that adventure and getting to know the local laborers in that area and turning that house around. And yes, it was a lot of work, but every day we put time into that house, it came out looking so great. And getting to know the people in some town I'd never been in my entire life. And now I'm there performing for them with them like throwing money at me on the stage. It was surreal. And it wasn't like only 5 people showed up. I think everybody from the entire surrounding towns and areas showed up. There was a
Were you nervous?
No, maybe. It's hard to say. I pulled through. I was nervous in the moments when the song would end. And I'd be like, well, I'm going to take a break, guys. And they'd be like, no, you're not. Stay up there. And I'd be like, okay, then. It was like the worst peer pressure when you're not drinking and everybody else is like a little tipsy on green beer. Yeah, I was nervous, I think, but it was fun. It was an adventure, and I hope that when my kids, maybe they'll look back and watch these videos and see that Dad took some risks and did some things that were different or outside the box, and hopefully inspire them to take risks and do things that they enjoy in their lives too.
Yeah, I remember that episode. That was a pretty good one. You were still doing? Yeah, you said you were doing the Potter's house. It was during that time.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I'm just remembering some of the things that were in the Potter's house. You had like the big butcher's block as the like main island for the kitchen.
Yeah, we brought that in from our store.
Yeah,
but we found amazing things in that house.
Yeah,
artwork, sculptures, 2,000-year-old Mayan or Peruvian whistling jug, which I still haven't quite figured out how to use. I'm gonna have to try. I was a little bit nervous to put my lips on it because you have to fill it with water halfway and then you kind of blow through it, and I think it's meant to make sort of a like when you blow into the top of a bottle.
Mm-hmm. It goes.
Yeah. I think that's what it does. I haven't tried. I should probably. That's one thing I did keep actually because I thought it was cool.
Yeah.
But I was told that it was likely buried with somebody at one point, and so you're like,
they've touched that one.
Yeah, maybe give it a little bit of a wipe down first. I don't want the mummy's curse on me or something.
You were like that. You were like that first one, and thought, oh well.
Yeah, truth be told, I probably was just like, meh. I'm sure time has sterilized it.
Yeah,
not maybe even more deadly.
Yeah,
but. Yeah, it was just a really fun adventure, and we're hoping to have more adventures too. We want to build this little building next to our shop and get some of our. We have some wonderful crew members and people that help us out, so we want to get everybody back to work again. So with luck, there'll be more adventures coming soon.
Yeah, and that also brings up another thing. You helped out Hans, who was the that was like huge for me at the time. I was kind of watching from the sidelines. I was like, wow, like it all started with wanting to get him a propane tank, and then it ended up with getting him a small building. House. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was pretty crazy.
Hans is really nice, friendly Canadian guy, and he very hard worker. He helped me out with. We knew of him as being a friend of the family.
Yeah.
And I had never met him prior to that, but they said, "Oh, if you need trees cut down, you got to talk to Hans. He'll be able to come out there and climb up." And he's very rambunctious and fun guy.
Yeah.
And so he came out and he just worked super hard. My favorite Hans story is that I can't remember what he worked to, like it was like $20 an hour or something he was agreeing to work for, just do manual labor. And I said, okay, today's project is to take down this addition off the side of the house. And he comes back in 30 minutes later and it's done. He's like, yeah, okay, so like $10 is fine, eh? And I'm like, oh, just because you could take an entire addition off a house in 30 minutes doesn't mean I should only pay you $10. He demolished an entire section of a house with just his bare hands in 30 minutes. But he was like, yeah, I know. It's like, it took me that long, so $10 is fine. I'm like, okay, well, that's nuts. But he's just that kind of guy. And so when I found out that he didn't actually have heat, at first my mother-in-law said, well, if you have anything for him to do this winter, maybe he could stay working on the house, or because he doesn't have heat in his place. I said, oh, that's no good. So I woke up and I thought, I'm going to fundraise and see if I can get him some propane tanks so he can heat his trailer. And then I went out to visit him at his trailer and found out that he was living essentially in a broken down fifth wheel with no power, no heat, no nothing.
Yeah.
It's like camping in a broken down tent, basically permanently, after his house burnt down. Yeah. It had been like that for several years. And we were able to raise enough money to actually buy him a whole house in his town.
Yeah.
Wow. It started off from just trying to get him basically a few $1,000s for propane for the winter. And people were very generous and gave back, and we were able to get, I think it was just close to $50,000 in the town he was in. I negotiated the heck out of that house. I think they were asking like originally 100,000, and we got it down to like 45 or something. I'm like, yes. Yeah. So he's busy working on his little house right now. Actually, he's fixing the foundation needed a little bit of repair, so he's repairing everything on it. So he's got his own little house.
Yeah.
And it was nice and warm over winter, and it's just nice to know that our YouTube community was able to pull together for the good and get somebody into a much better place. And now he's got a girlfriend, and he's working full time. He's like,
yeah.
So it's the second time we've been able to help somebody out that was in need of a bit of a leg up. And I think when you're in an opportunity to do that, it's nice to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that is nice.
Yeah. So Charlie, do you have any final questions before we end off this? It's getting pretty late for you.
I know. You know what time it is now? It's 1:40 in the morning. So yeah, I was wondering about your guitar collection, because you're a musician, and I just want to know where that came from, like where it all started.
I wouldn't go so far as to say musician, but I'm not afraid to pick up.
I've saw your videos, you playing, so you can actually play and sing.
My dad was a professional musician.
Okay.
And at a very young age, he wanted to teach me how to play. And at a very young age, I decided I would never learn how to play. And so my dad used to teach guitar. And I think if you've ever had a parent that wants nothing more than for you to be their very best student, and they can be a little bit harder on you than the rest of the kids, you kind of sometimes avoid that interaction. So I actually avoided getting my dad to teach me anything, but I was secretly paying attention. And I taught myself how to play guitar and to read tabs and music. And, I played guitar for quite some time, and I never really sang until really the past year or so, that I thought I might be able to sing. And I thought, well, somebody saw the guitar. This is how it happened. My guitar was sitting in the background, and somebody on YouTube said, "Oh, you have a guitar, but I bet you can't play it." And I was like, "Oh, sure, I'll sing you a song." And so I did a Johnny Cash cover, and they're like, "Whoa, boo, you lip sync. That wasn't you. That was Johnny Cash singing." I'm like, "No, that was actually me." And they didn't believe me. So
turn that record off. Oh, it's me.
Yeah, they thought I was lip syncing. They're like, "Way to fake it. That's not you singing." And I'm like, "Yeah, that's actually me." And then when they realized it was actually me singing, they're like, "Oh, I guess you can actually sing and play guitar." I'm like, "Yeah." So every once in a while, we put out a song. I mainly use my dad's old guitar, ironically now, the one he wanted to teach me on.
Yeah.
I have more of an emotional attachment with that. I lost my dad a couple of years ago, and so even though I need to do a little bit of setup on it, and it's not perfect. I play his old 1960s Washburn classical that I've played pretty much my whole life. So I've had a relationship with that guitar forever. But I've got a 1936 Epiphone, like a blues guitar, and I've got his Les Paul, his 1962 Les Paul, that occasionally I pick up and play. But I'm not a classical I'm not a electric guy. I mostly play acoustic. So for me, I leave it unplugged.
So it's like a Johnny Cash sort of style. Yeah.
Yeah, and I never listened to country music growing up, but my voice when I sing kind of goes to this Johnny Cash kind of.
I'll help myself today.
Yeah. So it kind of just goes that way. So I decided to roll with it. And it seems for whatever reason, I can sing specifically like 1940s, 50s, and 60s country music. I can be like, bang on. Give me something else. And I can do folk music, I guess, too. Okay.
What about Elvis?
I could do, I hate to say it, I was never really a big Elvis fan, probably because it was so overdone. Being somebody who grew up as a kid in the 80s, and Elvis was retro then, Elvis was just everywhere. And he was in too many places, like Elvis, Betty Boop, and Marilyn Monroe. It's like if you wanted nostalgia, that's all you got. It's like you're spoon-fed those three things. And I was like, I'm done. I've seen enough of that, so I don't really sing or do much of the Elvis. But I probably could. I prefer like Lou Reed or, if we're doing or earlier like Velvet Underground. But a lot of those songs aren't necessarily PG, so sometimes you have to be selective in what you.
Have you ever done any new covers, like new artists?
I probably should. I mean, I could. But no, I haven't done too much in the way of new stuff. I find I've been, surprisingly, in the early 2000s, I was listening to a lot of things like Daft Punk and electronic music. Yeah. And now, for me, new music for me is in fact old music because I had not heard it before.
Yeah. I don't know what new music is.
Yeah. It's like you rediscover those sounds, and the words were so much more sincere, or they speak to me more than a lot of new music where it's very repetitive. And I think they said that the reading level for modern music is like maybe grade 3, and back in those days it was more like grade 10 or grade 11. Where they tell a story. If you listen to Leonard Cohen, and he's very lyrical and he tells these beautiful poems, and just listening to new music now, it's more about the rhythm or the beat. It's not about the words. So I haven't been inspired to do any covers of new music, but maybe that'll change. We'll put out some of our own too. But, yeah, appreciate that question.
Sorry.
So what would be what is your choice of music right now? What would be one album that you would thoroughly enjoy, would want to take on a deserted island?
I'd still listen to Nick Drake or sometimes Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds, or Nick Cave, some of his stuff like Boatman's Call, or some of those albums that are just very kind of poetic and dark. Yeah. If it's kind of newer music, I don't know. There's quite a few artists out there. It's hard to think on the spot of what you've been listening to. Andrew Bird's kind of interesting in terms of folk. There's so many different artists that a person listens to and seeks that inspiration from. Yeah. In some cases, you want to sing like them too, and then you realize their voice hits different notes that you can't hit. Yeah. Where I'm more tenor or baritone, and then they're like falsetto, and I'm like, yeah, I'm not hitting that.
I'm just gonna be Johnny Cash. That's my limit.
Yeah, but now it's like, what other? Those are easy for me to do. Like if I had I could probably do be a professional Johnny Cash cover person if I wanted to. Yeah. But that's, I've been there and done that. Now I just want to explore other things and see. But yeah, occasionally people will be like, "Oh, sing Ring of Fire," and I'm like, okay. Again. Yeah, I like Johnny Cash, so I don't want to become like the Elvis Presley for me, where it's over.
Yeah. Exactly. All right, so thank you very much, Alex, for joining us. We appreciate you taking the time out of your day to do this.
My pleasure.
Yes. So
I've enjoyed it. I've just been listening to you when it was time. I'm learning as well as you talk. Yeah. Because I don't know half this stuff, to be honest. My antique history is not very good, or history in general. So I'm learning quite a bit here.
Yeah. All you have to do is go outside and look around, and you'll have history all around you.
Mm-hmm.
But I appreciate it. Yeah, I appreciate you guys taking the time to chat today. So wish you well.
Yeah.
And thank you all to everyone.
You too, and I hope things get better. Stay positive.
Yeah.
And safe.
Things will improve.
Yeah.
COVID will pass.
Yeah,
enjoy your scenery, the woods as well.
Yes. We'll be trust me, we'll be out of the woods soon enough.
I like that. Yeah.
See you later.